I'm going to seal and grout these tiles. I've made sure that the tiles are clean and dry. Okay, I've washed all the slate and now I'm just going to seal it. I'm going to use a mop, and it might be a bit easier. I'm going to seal it before grouting. I'm applying the sealer liberally. I'm only going to put one coat of sealant down and then I'll apply another coat after I've grouted the tiles when the grout is dry. It's so much quicker and easier to apply this with a mop. You can see the difference between the tiles where I've put the sealant on. It looks better already. I'm also sealing the existing tiles as well to match this in. I will let this dry overnight before I start the grouting. Today we're going to grout the patio. These are the items I'm going to use to grout the tiles. I'm using a grey colour flexible outdoor tile grout. It's suitable for wide joints, for tile joints up to 20mm. I'm going to mix this up in this bucket and I've got a grout float. It's quite flexible underneath. I know it's called a grout float because it's got grout float written on it. I'm going to use this container to measure out the grout powder and the water into the bucket. I've got a bucket of water and a sponge and I've got a trowel. Oh, I've left my cup of coffee there. You don't need to have a cup of coffee for grouting. A cup of tea is equally as good. I'm mixing the grout 5 parts powder to 1 part clean cold water. So basically I'm putting 5 scoops of powder into the bucket and then 1 scoop of water. I'm mixing this together with a trowel. I'm mixing a small amount just to start with. I'll see how I go and then I'll mix a little bit more later. I'm adding a little bit more water as it's quite thick. I'm making sure this is a paste consistency. That's about right. I'm letting this rest for about 5 minutes and then mixing it again slightly before I then use it on the tiles. I'm basically doing what it says on the instructions. As you can see, there's quite a big gap in the tiles and the gap is quite deep, so the grout will really help to keep the tiles in place as well. I'm going to start from this far corner and work my way in. I'm putting the grout in place with the trowel, then I'm going to work this in really well into the gaps. I'm just going to test it on this small area first and see how it goes. I'm going to do a 2 wipe process. So basically I'm going to wipe this, then turn the sponge over and then wipe it on the other side to avoid getting any streaks of grout left on the tiles. And then I'm going to rinse the sponge out. I'm going to make sure that I work across the joint and not along the joint, or otherwise I'll just be taking the grout out of the joint. I'm going to try a slightly larger area now, but really work the grout into the joints so it gets into all the gaps. It's quite a long process. I'm going to wipe the sponge across the joint and then turn the sponge over and give it another wipe and do the same again. It's starting to set a little bit on the tiles, so I'm just going to clean this area up. Wipe, turn and wipe. Wipe, turn and wipe. It's quite quick once you get into the flow. That's the first section done. Now for the next row. I've grouted most of this area here. I've just got to do this section here that goes right up to the fence. I've discovered that when there's a slight raise in the tile, it's good to wipe it towards that raise. Otherwise it can be really streaky. For example, I'm wiping towards the raise, and then it actually gets rid of the streaks. And then wipe again diagonally across the joints. When I tap this tile, I can hear it's quite hollow underneath, so there's obviously some gaps. I'm going to really work the grout into this joint. And then I'm tapping it again and I can hear the tone is changing. So I know that the grout has got into all the gaps. Just a few more tiles to go. Okay, that's it all grouted now, and I've also resealed it, and you can see the rainwater is just sitting on top of the tiles. I've also regrouted the existing tiled area as it was looking quite different in colour and it wasn't matching at all. But now you can see it all matches in. Well, that's another job done, and it's a bit closer to finishing. In my next video, I'm going to be putting the lights in the decking. So stay tuned and remember to subscribe.